reaction to this video that came up in my feed, and I've seen a lot of people in the community just talk about what is it right to do this? I don't know, but my initial impression is that I haven't really heard anyone become delusional about the prices. I think everyone has a consensus that it's just over what should be considered reasonable for an expensive deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's not really anything new. So I don't think anyone's really calling it delusional. I mean, have they? Yeah. My initial impression is that no, people are saying it's definitely still expensive to play the game, and I really haven't heard anyone become delusional, but I guess someone said something I'm unaware of. So I guess we'll watch the video and find out.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Content creators are becoming, for lack of a better term, delusional. It's something that I've noticed more and more while using social media, specifically Twitter. To their defense, maybe some of them don't actually believe what they're posting, or they're just bored and seeking attention. But recently, as the community struggles with accepting more $100 staples like Bonfire and possibly Snake Eye Populous right around the corner, there have been some very outspoken Yugitubers announcing that essentially everything is fine, the game is perfectly cheap and reasonably priced to play, and if you disagree, you're just a scrub who needs to get good. First, there was a post made by one half of the mega popular Yugitubing channel.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Shape, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not something in these two. I mean, it's not unreasonable to make this statement. Competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not cheap, that's true, but I do think that for most part, this is a reasonable statement, although I can see how some people might be triggered from it because everyone thinks that you should be able to do everything for as little as possible, but that's not how the world works.
Head-to-head battles. Susu posted, quote, "Yu-Gi-Oh! Is cheap. Competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not. Stop mixing these two. Any hobby, if you want to compete at the highest level, has a cost. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is cheap," close quote. Excusing that he didn't even spell the word.
So yeah, you can play Yu-Gi-Oh! Cheap. Like, you can definitely buy 3 structure decks, and these days structure decks are very good. Rarity Collection got you a lot of cheap staples, so the game on the whole, it's actually cheap. It's actually quite affordable for entry level, but if you want to play the best deck, like the Fire deck with 3 Sinful Spoils, the Bonfires, well, obviously that's not cheap, but you can't say just because you can't play the best deck with the best engine, you should say that that's an issue. No, you can definitely play the game on a budget. It's just you're not going to have the best deck, and I think the best deck does deserve having a price tag, but there should be always alternate options available, which there are. You can play whatever you want from structure. In fact, I think Pac did a video where he was playing Traptrix decks, and he just played budget and won at locals all the time. Now, not everyone is Pac skill level, but the fact that it's possible to build a budget deck and have success with it, even at the locals level, I think that's what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about. Being able to play a budget option, have the ability to, rather than just having, oh, I guess I gotta go pay $2,000 to get the whole Fire deck.
Hobby correctly, I believe that while Susu is technically
oh, he did misspell hobby. Oh, that Cap G win.
right, it's a bad faith argument. He's right in the sense that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is technically quote-unquote cheap if you're only talking about the bare minimum price for entry. It's not like a hobby such as card collecting where the bare minimum for most running and non-salvage cards is going to be thousands of dollars. In Yu-Gi-Oh! You can pick up nearly any modern day structure deck for 10 to 11 bucks and play the game right out of the box. Are you going to have something that will fundamentally work and is playable? Sure. Will it be optimized and suited for your personal tastes, or something that gives you a great grasp of the game and how it's played? Probably not. The reason we shouldn't use
disagree with that. I think structure decks are becoming to a point now where they're actually very good, very playable, and they have a lot of good generic staples. Like, again, I know I'm going back to it, but look at the Trap Trick structure deck. It had Ash Blossom and Evenly Match with a bunch of Kaijus in there. That's really good for building a deck with a fundamental core. In fact, the first year, I think I returned to Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2022, or 2023 early, and what happened was the Trap Trick structure deck was released. I was able to get that structure deck and have a very good foundation for a core deck to build upon. And obviously you have to get other cards to play the deck, like at the highest level, but you have a core of cards you can use, and you have good generic staples. Add in, now we have Rarity Collection. It's really easy for anyone to get the staples just by getting packs of that, or buying a box, or just buying singles in general. So I'm gonna disagree with CapG there, that you can definitely get cards really affordably now, but you aren't getting the best. I don't think that's a big issue. I think the big issue is at least having an affordable way to play the game. Because again, getting people to come into locals is a big issue. And if you give them an affordable option where you say, hey, spend $100 and you're going to have a deck that's playable for the whole year probably, and you're going to build it on a budget. Now, if anyone says, oh, $100 is too much, well, you're not going to be able to play every game like much more budget than that. I know everyone has different budgets for different persons, different personal situations, but $100 to do a hobby, and it's going to set you up for like 3 months, maybe more, and you're going to get to evolve it over time with packs and for prizes. That's not a bad thing. So don't try and point out, oh, because you don't have the best possible deck available at the time and you can't get it for cheap. No, that's not how the world works. If you want the best quality of anything, you're going to have to pay a premium price. Like, I don't know, use groceries, for example. I'm pretty sure you can't go to the supermarket and say, hey, I want the best quality toilet paper, but I want it at the bottom dollar price. That's not how the world works.
The floor as a barometer to determine how affordable Yu-Gi-Oh generally is fairly simple in my opinion. That reason is because people don't generally pick up hobbies with the intention of participating or engaging at the absolute lowest level / bare minimum. No kid ever tells their parents that they want to start playing basketball so that they can make the team and be the last player off the bench who never gets into the games or gets any playing time. So,
well, that's completely different. That's about working hard and getting better at what your skill set is. Whereas this is a hobby. You want to do it to primarily, number one, have fun. You're not trying to make a career out of playing Yu-Gi-Oh professionally.
So the idea that Yu-Gi-Oh can be cheap to get into is, again, technically true, but it's largely irrelevant to the discussion that everyone's having right now. Playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh in the TCG is not cheap, and what I think Susu is missing here.
You don't need a copy of SP Little Knight to play Yu-Gi-Oh. Common misconception, my hobby is not playing Yu-Gi-Oh, it is winning at Yu-Gi-Oh. I cannot win a game of Yu-Gi-Oh with... Okay. Yu-Gi-Oh, even locals are sweaty, so you need... No one wants to go. Okay, so this is true. If you want to win at the game and be highly competitive, yeah, you do need a copy of Little Knight. In some cases, possibly 2 Little Knights. Yeah. I think this statement is true, but I think don't mix up the difference between a hobby, which is just playing to have fun with your friends at local level, maybe use a budget structure deck or whatever, and then don't compare that with the misconception that, oh, I want to win. Again, you got to separate the I want to win with I want to have fun arguments. If you can separate them there, and then you're coming into this with just that idea to have fun, play on a budget, enjoy yourself, that's all. But if you want to play to win, well then yeah, you're gonna have to pay for it.
Here is number one, no one in the last 3 to 4 months that these discussions have been going on surrounding the price of the game has given any legitimate reasons as to why it needs to be this way. And number two, the term competitive Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't mean, as he implied, competing at the highest levels. I'll start with number two, as that's a super common misconception. There's often this idea that the term competitive Yu-Gi-Oh or competitive player only represents players who are playing at YCS or national level events, and that simply isn't true. Not only are regionals competitive events that can oftentimes feature upwards of 400 players, even 1,000 if you live in California, but why wouldn't
1,000 player regionals? Damn, we don't have that down in Australia at all. I wish we did, but we don't.
we consider local tournaments competitive as well? I've heard people say things like, oh, I have a really competitive locals, or I tested this deck at locals a couple of times before taking it to regionals,
Yeah, that's normal. I do that all the time. Test decks at locals.
Countless times in videos, and even in person. I say this to make the point that locals, regionals, remotals, they're all competitive events. It's not like only the people who attend YCS tournaments are the ones who practice, play test, research the metagame, and want to win duels. For instance, last format I top 8'd a fairly small remotal regionals with Runixton, but I can tell you that every single person that I dueled against was a competitive player. Even with the
Well, the thing about remote duel events is sometimes you're playing in smaller pools, but again, the people that really want to grind the remote duel events are generally the people who have their setups all in nip tuck and set because they're trying to compete at the highest level. That's not exactly a news thing. That something that's not like casually available, you're going to see a more competitive environment.
these smaller tournaments, 95% of the people you're playing against are going to have competent competitive decks. You're not just going to show up to a regionals and your opponent's like, hey dude, only my second time ever playing the game, haven't had a chance to pick up a pack of sleeves yet, but I'm feeling really good about my Duston, Dark Magician, Exodia, Fire Princess Turtle deck. The second point here is that again, no one has ever really given a good explanation as to why competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! In the TCG has to be expensive. And in
So many bad takes. Okay, so many bad takes on here. Just because it's a hobby doesn't mean it should be expensive. It's how cards should be cheap, so everyone can afford them. Most people aren't going to drop $1,000 on a deck. Not to mention the balance could hit. Yes, this is a very good point by DB Grinder. Okay, this is a wildly ignorant statement. You can not cheap it should be, but even at a local level, you often see still need a few money cards to put up a fight because of how the game is structured. Think of how Imperms and Blossoms cost. Okay, this is a bad take here. Ash Blossoms and Imperms were very cheap because they were structure deck cards. Imperm was super rare. In fact, it had a common printing in the Fire King structure deck, so this really doesn't give me an argument. And as like you had me at the first part, but then you lost me with think about how much Imperms and Ash Blossoms were. They were commons and printed multiple times. Imperm was a super technically, but again, still not too much. Like if you say, "Oh, the card is $10," how dare it be? It's not a. That's not an exceptionally large amount of money to spend on cards. Just $10. I mean, surely you can scrape up $10 for 3 imperms to improve your deck. Don't have to have it all at once, but over time you can definitely get it.
In turn, why I believe that complaining about the current prices in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is completely reasonable. A couple of people have tried making, in my opinion, bad arguments supporting why the TCG needs to be expensive in the past, but those points have all easily been debunked, usually by me. I bring that up because Susu actually tries to make claims defending how expensive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, saying things like, because we have vendors, hyper-competitive players, stores that need to recoup expenses, close quote. Without really diving deep into this, is he trying to imply that these things don't exist in the OCG or in other trading card games? Because I can certainly assure you that they do. Go ask literally any competitive player who plays these other card games, which, by the way, I've actually done. Another point Susu makes is in regards to people bringing up the huge price disparity for competitive meta decks and other similar TCGs, which I've
This argument has been beaten into the ground. We don't need to go over, but Pokemon is cheap, but Magic the Gathering. Look, other card games are other card games. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is another card game. If you want to keep bringing this as a mute point that another company is doing something cheaper, then I don't know what to tell you. Go to the other company because this argument doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to what Konami are going to do. Just because another company is cheaper and then Konami is more expensive, I don't know what to tell you. This is not going to change. There are always going to be people coming in to play the game. If your big issue is this company is doing something better, go to the other company. The large company is not going to change because your opinion of them is poor. The only real option is just go play with the other company. That's all I can really say about that one.
I've actually talked about on this channel multiple times over the past few months. Susu states, quote, they are on a rotational system as opposed to an FNL list. They have a completely different play and pay structure to Yu-Gi-Oh!" Close quote. So here he's mainly addressing the Pokemon trading card game and claims that having set rotation allows it to be more affordable. I mean, I think that this point is laughable, like laughably bad. At least it is once you learn that the One Piece trading card game, the Dragon Ball Super TCG, and the Digimon TCG, surprise, all don't have set rotation and use a ban list just like Yu-Gi-Oh! And their meta decks on average are massively cheaper than what we have in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. I actually spoke with a friend of mine who is an avid Digimon TCG player, and his response to my question was, "Laughs in my $68 meta deck, Cap G." Lastly, Susu outright blames the secondary market when asked point blank why the OCG can be far cheaper and
Yeah, the secondary market is a big issue because, again, OCG compared to TCG printings are far different. The OCG has everything printed in a low rarity and a high rarity, so you can always get things at a budget, but if you want to spend money, that's an option because you can also go high rarity. So I don't disagree with that take, but again, the OCG and TCG are different entities in their own way. It would be good if the TCG could adopt the OCG methodology of printing. However, they're not going to. This has been a point made for years that they should, but they're just not. So realistically, what can you do about it other than just accept that it's not going to change and keep playing the game that you love? Or if you don't love the game, just don't play it. That's the only real option because they're not going to change anything. We've been arguing this for a decade probably.
More reasonably priced as opposed to the TCG when of course we use the same exact cards. While the secondary market does play a role in card prices, to say that it's the sole determining reason as to why the TCG costs so much more to play competitively is again laughable in my opinion, or borderline delusional. I've already shown on this channel in prior videos that the OCG booster box and set structure not only makes it far cheaper for players, but ironically also offers more value to them. Furthermore, the TCG is far more expensive because of Konami themselves. It's their fault. Rarity bumping and short printing highly desired cards are both artificial ways of creating scarcity/demand, and obviously this is unnatural. It goes all the way back to the days of Upper Deck when they ran the game.
Shit. Yeah. Okay. I just knew CapG was gonna find a way to insert a Teledad reference in this
game. And if you know your Yu-Gi-Oh history, you'll know that there are dozens of huge examples. Dark Arm Dragon was a rare in the OCG that became at its height a $275 card for Dad Return and $250 for Teledad format.
Fun fact, back when I was playing in 2008, or just like towards the end of 2008, I was able to find a Dark Arm Dragon for what I could consider as an absolute bargain at the time. I think it was like $200 Australian, which was probably like around 150-ish US. And I was ecstatic when I found that card, when I got that card. Like, I mean, I was obviously very young at the time, but yeah, that made my day. And like, I only had one Dark Arm Dragon, but you know, I made it work.
Spellbook of Judgment and Dragonic Diagram were both commons in the OCG that became over $100 cards for the TCG.
Yeah, 2013 Dragon Ruler format was tough because you had two choices. You can go with Dragon Rulers, where you needed multiple Draco Sacks, that was a $200 card, or you could play Spellbooks, where you needed 3 copies of Spellbook of Judgment, which was a $100 plus card. So that was probably the worst one I can remember, where you literally had no option. At least in modern era formats, like the game might be expensive, but you still have like options you can play, like that are not generally like budget options, but like Mannadium. You can get that Mannadium engine right now for like under like $200, and it's still a very good deck. Whereas like in 2013 Dragon Ruler format, the options were you played Spellbooks with very expensive Judgments, you played Dragon Rulers with the very expensive Draco Sacks, or you were just there to have fun, go X3 drop, and then off to lunch. That was the option, really.
SP Little Knight and Ash Blossom, both super rare in the OCG. Pot of Duality, Pot of Desires, Pot of Prosperity, and Pot of Extravagance were all supers in the OCG, but changed to secret rare in the TCG. To me, it's mind-blowing that someone could spend this much time around Yu-Gi-Oh! And apparently not know or understand how it really works. If cards like Spellbook of Judgment and Dragonic Diagram weren't rarity bumped, it would have been impossible for them to reach $100 per copy. This is because supply of low rarity cards in our booster sets is so much higher than the high rarity ones like Secret Rare, in addition to them having a higher pull rate. The secondary market didn't choose the short print cards like Necros of Brionac, 1 per every 6 boxes, or rarity bump meta cards like Rescue Rabbit from being a rare in the OCG to literally the highest rarity possible in Secret Rare for its
again, even like Rescue Rabbit was very expensive at the time. I played Dino Rabbits in 2012. The deck was expensive, but it was the best deck. Again, the best deck is always going to have an A price tag to it. Just if you can't afford it, then then your only option is to find an alternate option which you can afford. I'm sorry if that's like not a fair statement, but that is the options you have.
TCG release in Photon Shockwave. Now, whose fault could that have been? Whose fault was it that Brio got short printed or that Rescue Rabbit got rarity bumped up 3 rarities? I don't know, but if you do, you leave that in the comment section below.
Yo, I got...
Wait, what the Wait, what? I was about to have a look at the comment section, but
banned from events.
Why is Triff here?
I did nothing wrong, man. I did nothing wrong whatsoever. I didn't even know I got banned. I didn't get no email. I didn't get no explanation. Jokingly.
Why is there just random clips of Triff here? Why are we just doing random Triff?
Jokingly.
Now, head-to-head battles wasn't the only one engaging in...
Triff made a outlandish statement. Anyways,
what I'll just describe as nonsense. Triff Gaming jumped into the discourse by posting this.
Oh, yep. Not the Triff banger. Why Yu-Gi-Oh is so expensive. Why buddy, just win a few locals and trade your one of my local price support is an OTS pack and 2 packs of whatever relatively got. Far from being the voice of reason. You know it's bad when Farfa has to be the voice of reason in this, but I mean, Triff, come on, man. He doesn't believe this, does he? I mean, surely he doesn't believe this. This is terrible, man. Oh God. I mean, the workings of Triff's mind are, God, puzzle, enigma. Oh God.
Which is so silly, I'm not even gonna read it. This is just one giant fallacy and implies that one can just easily win hundreds of dollars worth of cards from their local.
So just for comparison, my locals, they give us 1 OTS pack for competing at the event, and then it's like 1 pack per win. So like everyone gets like 1 pack for like entry as well, like with the OTS. So like if you go 0-5 or whatever it might be, you still get 1 booster pack, but you will still be at, but I think it's something like 1 pack per win. So if you win like 5 rounds, you get like OTS plus 5 packs or like something like that. But what's that, like $5 a pack, 5 packs plus an OTS? That's like $25, $15 entry. You're getting like $10 if you win the event. Come on, that's this game. You don't play locals every week to make a profit. No, it's you play locals every week to go for the enjoyment, to socialize at the events and have some fun. Like, you are not making money playing locals, and that's if you win everyone. Like, undefeated for a month. Like, let's say go to 2 locals a week, man, or 3 locals a week, 4 weeks in a month. That's like what? 12 locals at best, making $10, $120. That's gonna cover 1 bonfire, my man. And that's if I go undefeated in a month. Bro, even Pac doesn't go undefeated in a month. Even Jesse can't do that. That's insane. So, like, Triff having bad takes, let's
and then trade them for these new meta staple cards that are being released very frequently. Where do I even begin with this? What if, like Farfa brought up, my locals doesn't have superb pricing?
Oh, okay. So let's go to let's go to a larger locals in a metropolitan area. Pack wins a large locals, gets 5 OTS packs, gets like half a box of the most recent set, right? Let's say that's the best case scenario, 5 OTS packs, and then half a box of the new set, right? Okay, that's $60. Let's say he can do that 2 times a week. Like that, so now we've got eight of those, right? So he wins 4 boxes, and this is if he wins the event. Four booster boxes, and like say, what is it? 40 OTS packs. So he's probably going to get 2 ultis in there minimum, and then if we say half, let's say 4 booster boxes as well. So that's one thing you can say, okay, if you were playing at the largest store in a condensed metropolitan area, yeah, that statement might be factual. But it's still low percentage, very difficult to have it happen. And again, you have to be absolutely flawless and one of the best. And even if you are, sometimes you still lose. So you get out of that, and I'm assuming the price for entry is going up in those events, because to give out that kind of prizing, you have to raise the entry level cost. So let's say $20 per cost. So what do you get? Like, you make $30 profit per event if you win on average. So that's about 60 a week, 240 a month. Yeah, look, that, and that's only barely getting, like, say, your set of bonfires or anything like that. God, it's such a bad take, man.
Or maybe it's just worth about $50 if I win the entire event. That would take me something like 6 weeks of getting first place every single week to equal a set of bonfire. And let's just say that maybe I pulled some ultimate rares that were worth more than what a typical pack would give me, and we could cut that number in half. That'd still take nearly a month to get your bonfires, and by that time, Phantom Nightmare is coming out, and guess what? You need to pick up some Snake Eye Populace to make the bonfires actually worth playing to begin with, which, by the way, was only printed as a super rare in the OCG, but hey, we're dealing with Konami here. We know that they totally won't rarity bump Populace into being a secret rare in the TCG, right? Triff also goes on to say, quote, "Zero remorse for noobs, just win a YCS," close quote. And at first, I thought he was being facetious, but the more and more I thought about it, I don't think so. To this, I'll say, number one, this is like the epitome of irony, because Triff himself has been unable to win a YCS despite all the vast resources that he has. And number two, Triff is a sponsored player who has most—
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that part. Triff is sponsored by a company. Makes it even...
if not all of his travel costs paid by a private company, which is not available for like 99% of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists out there. This is where the title of the video comes from, and no offense, but why I say that Yugitubers have gotten delusional. The things that are available to them, like free travel to any—
Oh, okay, so this is why it is. Well, if this is why it is, then it's only a very small percentage. Like, I wouldn't say calling, because of like Triff saying something is delusional, or Triff being delusional is like a consensus of all Yugitubers. But yeah, like if you're saying, oh well, Triff is delusional and that's how you, yep, that makes sense. Then I can see how Triff being delusional about something can be like, yep, okay. But not all Yugitubers are Triff. Like, Triff speaks for a very small percentage of creators in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Creators in the space.
ICS that they want to attend, or thousands of dollars generated from content creation for doing something that they used to do all day for free isn't available to an overwhelming amount of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, and particularly their own audience. This video isn't meant to be inflammatory. It's meant to say that people need to remember to stay grounded. Everyone isn't in your financial position. The term expensive is relative and certainly subjective from person to person. However, having disdain for rarity bumping and short printing, as well as the TCG's overall business model, Pretty much isn't, because no one likes those things. The OCG is far more affordable. Outside of Magic, all of our peers like Pokemon and One Piece are more affordable. And even if you look at a game like Digimon that uses the TCG's stupid one printing of a card in a specific rarity system, that game is infinitely cheaper as well because they offer alternate art forms of cards in these same sets as the card was originally printed in. Long story short, players are fully justified in dunking on Konami over and over again for their crappy anti-consumer practices when it comes to the TCG, and being a contrarian to this doesn't make you cool. If you have reasons why Konami shouldn't change things for the better, I would absolutely love to hear them. For anyone else, leave it in the comment section below, and also do not be confused, this is not drama. Triff is still my homeboy. I have no issues with Susu. If anything, I honestly just feel like I'm speaking for the community, or at least I'm speaking from the other side of the argument that these guys are presenting. Thank you guys for watching, as always.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably correct. Like, I don't think anyone can really justify that, or think about that, justifying that in any way, that yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is ridiculous in some cases. Okay, well that was an interesting video.